Today on our show, it's the last of the sponsored episodes. Turksploitation, as selected by elite patron and patron project manager, Heather. Thanks for the support, Heather. Welcome to episode not available of Binge Movies. My name is Paul. Today, we count down movies in order of awesomeness so you don't have to. And I am joined by local celebrity, unofficial mayor of Cleveland, Phoenix. He's got humble opinions. He says they're humble, but I've seen his Twitter feed. He's got wild movie takes. I have a bone to pick with you,
Really?
Phoenix. We connected. You're local. We're in the same... Not the same area code. I don't know if you're 216 or if you're 440.
216.
Okay, I'm in the 330.
Okay.
216 is the legit one. You've got the legit one. That means you live in Cleveland.
There's
a lot of people. Yeah, there's a lot of people saying they live in Cleveland, and they got a 440 number and they live in Ashtabula. You don't live in Cleveland if you're in Ashtabula County, Lorain County, Lake County.
Yeah.
You got to be in Cuyahoga County. And we're not talking Parma. We're not talking North Ridgeville, North Olmsted. We're not talking North Royalton. By the way, there's a North Royalton. Is there a South Royalton? No, there isn't. How do you have a North Royalton, no South Royalton? That's a fake community. And anybody you've ever met who's from North Royalton, piece of shit. The only worst people in the world are from Strongsville.
Oh, yes, this is very true. That I can confirm, yes.
And they're all 440. Oh, Strongsville's horrible, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That I can almost guarantee you.
Yeah, you're 216. I'm 330. We have so much in common. We're about the same age. We're from the same area. We do a podcast. We watch a bunch of Stanley Kubrick. We laugh our asses off. It becomes an immediate, instant classic among the binge movie faithful. That was 2 years ago. Darren Lumberg swept in and took you away from being my new best friend, and you two became best friends and left my ass 30 minutes down the road from where you live. You just left me in the dust of Summit County. What is going on?
I mean, it's kind of like, it's like those two friends you have, and no matter how hard you try, you always love one more than the other.
Damn.
No, man. Darren, man, like we just connected, man. Like, and he's come on my show, I think 3 times now. Been on his show.
Oh, you're always on each other's show. I haven't even been invited. You're all from my area.
I don't
God
think
damn,
that's
you're
true. Maybe.
That is, yeah. What in the hell?
That can't be right.
It's supposed to be Ohio against the world.
Yeah, we gonna get there one day.
And meanwhile, you're connected with a guy in fucking Utah.
He's in Utah, the worst state.
Utah. He can't even have caffeine. That man can't drink caffeine.
Oh man.
We could be recording this from a frickin' Swenson's together, eating galley boys.
Yeah, we need to figure
potato
that out.
teasers. Yeah, what the hell?
We need to figure that out.
Deeply offended. I'm deeply offended. But since I'm so offended, I said I figure I'd pay you back. I invited you to come back on and talk about 5 of the strangest movies I've ever watched in the history of this show. These are Turksploitation films. If you don't know what the term Turksploitation is, and you think we're being racist, I assure you we are not. Turkey in the 70s and 80s had a burgeoning, quote-unquote, film industry. And that film industry was entirely made up of first-time filmmakers who were taking mainstream Hollywood films and sort of reinterpreting them for their homegrown audience in Turkey. And so they were exploiting American properties and recoding them for a different culture. And then those have since been decoded and recoded into our culture via tape trading and the underground movie scene and midnight movies and a desperate need for content. So here we are. We watched 5 Turkish films that stole American culture, which is fine because we've stolen everybody's culture. Stole American film. Then we got them back, and they were sort of half-ass translated back to us. We watched them, and we're going to be counting down these Turkish movies in order of awesomeness, which means we're not going through them chronologically. We're going to start with the least awesome Turkish exploitation film, Turkish knockoff we watch. I don't know what Phoenix is going to say. I don't know what Phoenix is going to say on a daily basis. I haven't heard from the man in 2 years. So I don't know what's going to happen. He doesn't know what I'm going to say. And here we are. So we're going to start with the worst Turkish movie that we watched. The least awesome Turksploitation film. Number 5, the worst. What is it, Phoenix?
Okay, I do not know if you'll agree with me on this one.
Probably not.
All of these movies are their own degree of horrendous, but but what I will say is some of them at least try to be coherent. I'll say that.
Yes.
But there's one that absolutely fails. Like 100% absolutely fails. Is got to be the worst thing I probably ever saw. And I can't even believe I sat through the whole thing. But my worst is, I don't know if there's another name for it, but it's listed here as Turkish Star Wars.
Yeah, so we're going by the sort of the underground names that were assigned to these in America, as opposed to their original Turkish names and their more transliterative names. We're going for their street names, what they got known for in the tape trading community. Turkish Star Wars. I figured that this would come up. This is much higher on my list. So
what?
Yeah. No, before I dive into that, I want to read the opening.
Oh God.
In its entirety.
No.
The film opens with completely stolen footage of all of the original Star Wars trilogy. The Millennium Falcon. I mean, it's Death Star footage. It's just footage from the movie. It's not like recreated footage.
No.
It is just stolen footage. Pirated footage.
Straight rip.
Straight rip.
Ugh.
Okay, rather than getting opening crawl, we get opening narration, and here it is, Phoenix.
Oh my God. So bad.
By going into space and landing on the moon, the space age began. The space age is an era of progression for man. This is how I wrote it. I don't know if this is exactly right. Thousands years they lived this way. Space age had been passed. Now began the galactic age. Thousands of years passed, and Earth's planet system turned into a galaxy system. Civilizations and history became past. Man adopted a simple life as in primitive ages, and with all their power, they initiated a relentless struggle to find immortality. Earth nations, civilizations, race, and religions become one. Then there was only one human life form and tribe in the galaxy. In the galaxy age, rather. Earth was facing the danger of extinction as a result of a crazy... This is the crawl. This is the narration. Crazy nuclear armament. Earth had avoided such dangers a couple of times before, that a single force had been able to destroy the Earth. However, in some cases, Earth had been disintegrated into parts. That's where it lost me. Earth had avoided all dangers. Then it says, but it's also been disintegrated into parts. We're all one race and all one religion. But we're also on a crazy nuclear armament binge? What?
Oh my god.
Parts which fragmented off the Earth had become a meteor in space. On some planets, life was still going on. However, the nuclear war gained momentum. For the sake of the I don't know what that says. For the sake of the rulers becoming more powerful, while the beautiful and happy world was madly destroyed. Okay. However, the nuclear war gained momentum for the sake of the rulers becoming more powerful, while the beautiful and happy world was madly destroyed. Suddenly, Earth came across a mysterious, strong enemy. Our world formed into matter from rays and energy 5 billion years ago, got fragmented into dust by the laser rays in the galaxy age. That's almost poetic. Those are almost bars right there, right? Our world formed in matter from rays and energy 5 billion years ago, got fragmented into dust by the laser rays in the galaxy age. Who was this enemy? From which galaxy was he?
Oh my god.
Humans, and this gets weirder from here. Humans and one single weapon. Against this danger, they started to resist with a shield welded with human brain.
Jesus.
With human brain and willpower. A coating. I thought that was a metaphor, but then they go, a coating formed by compressed human brain molecules. I thought maybe like it was bad translation and human brain meant like intelligence because it was paired with willpower.
Right.
But no, the next line is it was a coating, an actual physical coating they put around the Earth, which had been apparently disintegrated into dust.
Into parts, yes.
Into parts?
Parts that are
still
now
intact
meteors.
somehow?
Right.
Parts that are now meteors, but are still somehow intact as a planet. I don't know. And they formed this coating by compressed human brain molecules. And it protected the Earth. Earth was turning into dust after every attack and was hiding behind the something shield.
Oh my god.
Okay. All right, one more page.
Oh god.
A weapon to break the shield could only be constructed with human brain and willpower. But however strong their weapons, the enemies of the Earth did not have brains. The aliens in this movie, their weakness is they don't have brains.
Right.
So they can't take the molecules of their brains and make a laser strong enough to pierce the brain barrier of brain molecules that has coated the Earth in a shield. So they can't get through it, but apparently they can get through it enough to turn it into dust. It's very confusing. The value of the world and the humans in infinity was the greatest weapon. Not a single human warrior sent to find this unknown enemy returned. Human tribes tried to find a solution. The only solution was to find the enemy and fight it. That turned out to be the only solution, was to stop the guy that was trying to kill you.
Oh god.
What an original plot. Two strongest and greatest Turkish warriors, very ethnocentric. Two strongest and greatest Turkish warriors and others sailed into space, and others. So they don't get, the others get short shrift. I don't actually remember others in the movie.
No, I don't.
And for there to be two Turkish warriors, one of them dies pretty quick. It's just really the main guy who I think wrote the movie. So, so some humans did not get involved in this war, but every human capable of imagination and reasoning was determined to join and win this war. That's kind of disparaging, right? The people who who didn't get involved were like, we're not getting involved in the war. It's like, oh, that's all right. It's fine. You just don't have imagination and reasoning. So Anybody with brains is going to join our Turkish war against the brainless aliens.
Oh my god.
This movie is bizarre because rather than it, even though it uses Star Wars footage, it uses music from Dracula and Indiana Jones.
And
they play the Indiana Jones theme every 5 seconds.
Dude, it was everywhere. Literally everywhere. Training montage, fighting montage, staring at another person. I was like, what?
Yes.
Like I was so okay.
A lot of staring in this movie, Phoenix. A lot of staring at other people.
That monologue that you just read is literally like the first 10 minutes of the movie. And and it goes on forever. And it's underneath literal stolen footage from Star Wars movies. And I'm just like, I'm 10 minutes in, and all I'm thinking is, I'm going to cuss Jason out so bad when I talk to him about this one. I'm like...
So let me ask you this, Phoenix. Was all that time with D.W. Lundberg worth it? Was it worth it? To be on Nostalgia Cast and not Binge Movies?
I guess.
And you're second guessing some choices, didn't it? You're like, well, hang on a second, man. What'd I do to this guy?
That was my question. I was like, why did he pick me for this lineup? Like, what did I say that he was like, you know what would be great? Like, Torture Phoenix. 5 movies straight. Like, what the hell is this? Oh my god! Like, I'm just like,
oh yeah, there's a lot of what the hell moments, right?
Oh, like this one is the worst. Like, I'm glad we started with the worst. This is the worst because it was like, it's just none of it made any sense. Like, none of it. It was just the plot didn't make any sense. Where the story went even after that didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, and then I was like, I was confused because I'm like, it's Turkish Star Wars, but it ain't got nothing in it that's Star Wars related or adjacent. It's not like they...
Not after that first 10 minutes.
No,
it's its own... After the first 10 minutes, it becomes its own story.
Yeah.
It's mostly about these 2 Turkish super warriors who crash land on another planet.
Who can apparently break rocks with their hands.
After getting beat up, they have to retrain themselves.
Right.
So they can finally face the big bad guy who has no brain. And the way they do it is by bashing rocks with karate chops in their hands like boulders.
Mm-hmm.
And they also strap boulders to their ankles and do kicks
and fly
with boulders. And fly. And they jump and they fly. A lot of trampoline work in this movie. And a lot of staring.
Like so much staring.
I liken this movie to this movie is the equivalent of trying to recall a story you only heard once while eavesdropping a distant conversation at a party. Like, if you heard a conversation at a distance and we're only getting bits and pieces of it and tried to relay that story you heard to me, and then I wrote a script off of that and tried to shoot it as a film, that's this movie.
That is.
If you told me that, like, what it really feels like on top of that is that, remember when you were a kid, or maybe if you have kids or you have little cousins or something, they got their action figures, and they got action figures from this movie and action figures from that TV show and this cartoon.
Yeah.
And they're making up their own plots. They're making up their own stories.
Like, and they mixing
characters. And none of it makes sense. Yeah. Like, Wolverine's astronaut, and this character's this, and all the characters are wrong.
Right.
And then you're playing with them, and they're like, oh no, it doesn't work that way. Like you got to do it this, and like, I didn't die because I came back and I have boulders in my legs. Right. And you're like, wait, what? It's a small child. It's playing with action figures, making up the story as they go along. That's what this movie feels like.
Absolutely, which is why I don't understand why it's higher on your list. I played that game with my little cousins and stuff, and I'm like, okay, I have Captain America here. But they're like, no, Captain America's the bad guy. I'm like, excuse you? like,
yeah,
like,
exactly.
oh, he's the bad guy and he's in love with Barbie, but Barbie hates him because he's too short. And it's like, wait, hold on. Like,
right, yeah. What is going on here? Yeah.
I think we've lost the plot here, guys. So, yeah, that was this movie. It was just a lot of different parts of other films. You had the Star Wars in the beginning. It turns into Indiana Jones towards the end where they got to get like a magical sword or some type of thing. Some little Dungeons and Dragons in there, some witches. And like, I'm like, what is happening here? Like, it's everything rolled into one, and it doesn't make any sense. It's non-continuous. The only thing that I think is a standard of this whole movie is that these two Turkish guys will beat you up, like, apparently, like, really badly and all the time. Like, they just ready to go. Like from jump. They just like 1 minute they're staring at somebody for about 2 minutes straight, and then next thing you know, it's go time. Like, it's like they ready.
Yeah, oh yeah. A lot of staring, and the staring, you're right, the staring goes on for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then the fight scene will then go on for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. They'll start the Indiana Jones theme, right? And they'll be fighting. They'll stop the Indiana Jones theme. Not when it's done, just like cut it right in the middle of it playing. The fight scene will continue. 2 more minutes will go by, and they'll start the Indiana Jones theme at the beginning again. Right. It's like they only liked the first 90 seconds of the Indiana Jones theme. Yeah. And so they just use that same 90 seconds over and over again. Not on a loop. They'll just cut it. And it just ends. And then the fight scene continues, or the space battle, whatever. And then they just start it up again. It's just absolutely bizarre. Now, what if I told you that one of the Turkish warriors was supposed to represent Islam, and one of the other Turkish warriors was supposed to represent intelligence? That reason and faith were supposed to be able to come together to save the earth. Okay. That's what this movie is about.
I wish it was a bit more explained. If that was the intention, that sounds cool. Kinda on paper. I think the manifestation of it though is you didn't quite have it figured out. You didn't quite have it figured out. And it showed.
Yeah, if you're listening and you've never seen a Turkish film, Turksploitation film, I should say, which I don't think either one of us had before we did this episode. Imagine a country, a culture that has a history of storytelling, obviously, but has no history of filmmaking, and is literally learning filmmaking in the 70s and 80s, and
through other cultures.
Yeah, through other cultures. Yeah. So what you end up with is the sort of movies that you and I would have made in our backyard with friends,
right?
Except for that these were released for people to watch theatrically. So it's at times almost feels like you're watching somebody's home movies.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah. And you're like, whoa, this is something. I just kept asking myself, what is this movie about? Because I didn't know that it was, a allegory of sorts. So I said, okay, is it about Power Ranger villains? Because there was a lot of Power Ranger villains in this movie. Yeah. The main villain is not a Darth Vader. He's like he's not Zed. He's not Rita Repulsa.
No, he's
not even like the.
No, he's like Divatox's. One of Divatox's.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And post Divatox, we're talking about like Power Rangers circa 2003. Like, you're like, that show is still on. Who is watching this? Yeah. Like, and who are these people? It's like, oh yeah, it's Power Rangers Animal Morpher 057. You're like, Space Cadets. You're like, oh, okay. And like, whatever. And that's exactly what it's like. And that's what the villains are. And at one point he's just fighting they're fighting furries. There's just literal people in like sports team mascot costumes.
Oh my God.
And you're like, what is the plot even anymore of this? So I thought, okay, is this about like trying to stop a Power Ranger villain from building super weapon? Maybe.
Maybe.
Is it about zombies? Because at some point zombies enter the movie. And it's like old school, like voodoo zombies. He does the Turkish villain, the Power Rangers villain does like voodoo. He like casts a spell and the dead rise from their grave and come out of their graves. And they're completely like either zombies or mummies, right? Either one. Yeah, actually, zombies, mummies.
They bring up that plot point, and like I don't think they bring it up like way in the beginning, and I don't think they come back to it till like the tail end of the movie.
Yeah, I totally forgot about it. I was like, I forgot about the undead. You mentioned the undead.
On top of that, like it's just so long. Like, why are these movies so long? Like, like.
They're feature length.
They're literally feature length movies. Like not like your typical like hour and 30 minutes. No, these are like 2 hour, 25-minute movies. And you're like, what? Like none of this makes any sense whatsoever.
No.
And it's just, oh my God. Like,
you know what I saw as a real missed opportunity?
What's that?
They play the Dracula theme from the old school Universal Dracula. But they don't play it when the undead rise from the grave.
No.
They play it when the good guys are training in the desert. It's like, all of a sudden, it's like, da-da-da, da-da-da-da.
He's just like,
wait, what?
Wait, huh? Like,
it's not during a villain scene. It's not when the people rise from coffins. There's a moment in this movie where half a dozen people get out of the grave. That's when you steal the Dracula music.
Oh, God.
They stole the Dracula music from Universal, and they put it in a training montage.
I'm just blown away that they were able to get away with this, because I'm like, you clear rip of Star Wars footage, not like song, but literal footage. You rip off the opening scroll, which was even worse because it was somehow 20 minutes longer. You literally stole Indiana Jones, and not only did you steal the theme, you kept using it. Like you used it like 30 times.
Yeah,
like, Then you steal the Dracula theme, and it's just like, homie, how is this? Because I'm like, all I can think of is like if we were to do a movie today.
Yeah.
And like we could have a theme in it that like shares the same 2 keys of like the Indiana Jones theme, and we would get a copyright strike like instantly. I'm like, like how on earth did they get away with this? This is mind-boggling. But
it was an analog world, Phoenix, and who knew what the hell was going on in the Turkish cinemas?
That's true.
I'm not even sure how any of these movies ever found their way to the States.
Somebody had to think, you know what's hilarious?
Oh yeah.
Somebody visited Turkey and was like, oh my God, I gotta share this with the world. Because this is
for sure. Yeah. And because the versions that we've watched of these movies, somebody is out there and they're working on a 2K restoration of Turkish Star Wars. So it's actually in a fidelity that's watchable, because the version that you and I watched looked like somebody took a 16 millimeter or maybe 8 millimeter print, copied it to VHS, and then copied it 10 more times on VHS, then eventually put it on YouTube 20 years ago. And so some of these movies we watch such degraded copies that there's got to be more people working on. The thing is, like this guy's going to do the 2K restoration of Turkish Star Wars. They're never gonna be able to put it on Blu-ray because it's got 10 minutes of Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying this opening narration makes any sense, but man, if you cut that first 10 minutes out, that movie doesn't make any sense at all. The only reason I had any idea what was even remotely happening is because of this bizarre narration I read.
Yeah. And and it's weird because it's like, even from that, it doesn't tell you, like, it's not like the narration gives you somewhat of an idea of what the villains are after, I guess.
Brain molecules.
Right. But
yeah,
you don't explore any of that throughout the movie. Like the movie.
No.
It doesn't lead you to anything that scroll mentioned at all.
No.
Like, it's like,
no,
we go on a totally different journey. It's like, yeah, this is where we started, and it's like, this is somewhat where we're gonna end, but in the meantime, we're just about to do a bunch of other stuff.
Oh yeah, the beginning and the end has nothing to do with the very, very long middle.
No. That's
no. And at the end, when he says goodbye to this woman and child who he has fallen in love with,
right?
And you think, oh well, they'll form a new family. He'll live on this planet. He's like, no, I need to go back to Earth, which is much superior to your planet. Like, he says some like shady shit to them. He's like, I must go to Earth where there's more superior intelligence than this shithole you live in. But he's like, but I love you both. And then cut to the Millennium Falcon flying through space, and he's back in his ship flying to Earth or wherever he's going. And I was just like, oh, okay. Well, so the orphan boy and his mom, who are central characters through 2 hours of this movie, mean absolutely nothing to this guy, even though I thought that was what the point
and
was.
Again, that kind of goes back to what they're emulating from other cultures. Like, that's the typical story of, the cowboy who's like, who rides into town and saves this town, but he can't stay because he got to keep riding into other towns and saving those, whatever. So like, that's what they were getting at, is like this idea, this cowboy who comes into town, who falls in love with his family, but he just can't stay. He got to get out on there, and he's got a job to do or something like that. So I think that's the trope that they were copying, even though it's like you haven't earned that trope at all. It's just like it's so much of this is just, I'll take this, I'll take that, I'll take some of this. This looks good, and like, we'll just put it all together, and this is the story. Like, 2.5 hours, and it's just a mix of gobbledygook from every single thing you can think of. Like,
yeah. Well, we'll get to where it ranks for me. It is your worst, right?
Yes.
So, okay, all right. So let me put down the list here. We're not going to score these because I think that these are beyond scoring. It's not fair to score them because they'd all be zeros.
Yes.
So like, I don't score like amateur film like movies that somebody makes in their backyard.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what these movies are. So okay. So your number 5 is Turkish Star Wars. Okay. All right. Well, it's time to get to my number 5, and I might confuse you here. My number 5 comes from 1975. It is, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, Sell It, aka Executioner, aka Turkish Death Wish.
Oh, I can't believe this is your number 5. Seriously?
Okay. It is a much more competently made movie. It functions like a film.
Yes.
There are characters. He has a job. He's an architect. He has a wife. The wife gets assaulted. The honor is broken. He goes on revenge. He's a man pushed to the limits. That movie already existed in 1975. It was called Death Wish. This movie is a beat for beat Turkish recreation of Death Wish. And here's the thing. It's not really bad. It's kind of boring and it's a little too long.
Oh, it's way too
but it's a pretty faithful replication of Death Wish. Like, it looks like a movie. It looks like a low budget 70s movie, but it looks like a movie.
Yes.
And it to me, it doesn't really meet the criteria of the rest of these other movies, because the last movie we talked about is called Turkish Star Wars. After they blatantly steal Star Wars footage, it has fuck all to do with Star Wars. This movie is called Executioner. It is just Death Wish in Turkey. I mean, I think his name is the same. I think there's like Paul in both of them. Yeah, it's this. He's an architect of both of them. It's beat for beat the same with some added cultural flourishes,
right.
Stuff that doesn't make sense, in American culture,
Right.
doesn't make sense importing the Turkish culture. So they added Turkish cultural elements to it. But the rest of it is just Death Wish. And I don't know. I just would watch Death Wish. I'm not in Turkey. Nothing against it, but it's like, it's not doing. I'd rather it have more gobbledygook than just be a mediocre version of a movie that was already kind of mediocre. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. I agree with that. Like, but it's kind of funny. Like, I think if you asked anybody who saw the original Death Wish, they would also say this was terrible. Like,
yeah.
So, like, you're talking about a remake of an already pretty awful movie. It's like, you're almost like, why'd you pick this one? Right? So, like, if you were gonna remake one of our, you know, highly, I guess, celebrated revenge thrillers, like Death Wish, really? Like, but I think what they do, the one thing I will give that movie is the lead actor. I don't know his name. I probably couldn't pronounce it, but he has such an incredible look. Like, that's the one thing I would give that movie is that dude has an incredible look, and it works for what that story is doing. So
100%. The mustache, everything.
Yeah, it all really kind of comes together. My biggest issue with it, number one, is like you said, it's way too long. And for the crime that's committed, the fact that we have to go through this long slog of him learning how to kill people and then killing other people just to get to these guys, I'm like, yo, bro, can we speed this up? Like he doesn't get his revenge till literally like the last 8 minutes of the movie. It's like, like, no, dude, like, for what these guys do, how it's done, I would have been perfectly fine if he spent the entirety of this movie just killing these guys. Like that to me would have been better.
So let's compare that to like the later Death Wish movies, which, like, the first Death Wish comes out. I can't remember if it was a studio release or if it's technically an independent film, but it's a low budget, mid budget movie, and it's a surprise hit. It's a sleeper hit, and it blows up. And so it kind of becomes this sort of clandestine franchise that Charles Bronson would appear in into the 90s, I think. And eventually Cannon picks it up and they really go into more schlock territory. And it's always the same thing. This guy's daughter, his wife, his niece, some woman related to him, and this is awful, but it's true, his neighbor, no matter how absurd it gets, some woman who's connected to Charles Bronson gets brutally sexually assaulted. And he has to he spends the rest of the movie taking AK-47s and knives and bazookas and blowing the shit out of street punks. And the one thing is, and I don't know if this was culturally lost in translation or if it's lost in translation coming back to me. Part of the subtext of Death Wish that is really uncomfortable is it's always a white guy hunting down minority folks.
Yeah.
BIPOC. It's always this white guy who's got to get the Latinos and the black people and the immigrants from wherever, right, who move into the neighborhood and start raping our white women. That's what those movies are, right? And it kind of fed into white paranoia of like, oh man, you know, like the urban blight and the inner cities are dangerous, and don't let your daughters out in the world because they're gonna get raped in you know, the inner city or whatever. And so this white collar guy has to leave his white collar job as being a professional to go get these street urchins clean up the streets because the cops won't do anything. He's got to go do it.
Right.
And I don't know, like, I don't need that in the movie because I think that's really deplorable, honestly. But it kind of seems like they get into that because, like, the guys who assault his wife in the Turkish movie, they're kind of also street maniacs. They're like Turkish equivalent of street maniacs. But I don't know if they understood I don't know if it culturally resonates the same way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, I haven't been to Turkey, but
yeah,
I don't think they share our history of, racial tension that we have in America.
Well, white supremacy at the very least, yes.
Right. So, like,
right. Yeah.
So I think for them, like, they probably didn't even notice it. You know what I'm saying? Like that.
Right.
That it spread that level of propaganda. But yeah, when you put that in context here, like that actually, I can totally see how that narrative is compelling here with our racial context.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So like in that sense, I can see how it became somewhat of a, like, I guess you would say, I don't know if it would be a cult classic, but definitely a small, like, independent hit. Yeah. So like them taking that, sort of like an undercover thing. It kind of feels like, a little like independent thing that feels kind of grungy, that you just, what I'm saying, can mold your own way. So I get that, and I see the appeal of it. And like I said, I think like this movie, spoiler, is a little higher on my list as well. So like I kind of see the appeal here. My only issue with it is just simply that it's just way too long. I do think that it does a good job of exploring how violence corrupts even good people. And I think that was the intention of, well, maybe not the intention, but I do think that was the discovery of the original. And I think they found that discovery in this one too. I agree though that it is basically just a rehash. It is basically just a rehash of the original film. But I will say that in taking it and putting it in Turkish culture, they didn't find anything new or unique about it, but it was interesting to see that take from a different perspective, especially without racial tension.
Yeah, so I think what's interesting is they didn't really cut anything; they just added.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we're adapting it, so let's reinterpret the story. Like we understand the original cultural context of the story. Let's take it and make it a Turkish equivalent. Like, what are religious or racial lines, or fault lines? Where are tensions? What are political issues or issues of safety for women or sexual assault, or what? And let's interpret it within our own culture. And so it's like, okay, well, it's kind of the same, but it's also a very it doesn't really feel that way. It feels like they took Death Wish and then they just added 20 minutes of Turkish stuff to it. So now you have a 2-hour plus movie, right? So yeah, it's, and here's the thing, like, again, if you pulled up, you're 100% correct, Turkish Star Wars and Turkish Death Wish, just visually, sound off, just visually, and said, what's the better movie?
Right.
One of them is edited in an indiscernible fashion. One of them is constructed by people that seems have never seen movies before, right? Had only been told what movies were like. And the other one comes from people who have talent, right? They may not have all the resources, but they know the language of cinema.
Right. Yes.
They know how movies operate.
Right.
And then because that's so much more boring. It's just so boring. Yeah. So that's my number 5. Turkish Death Wish. All right. What is your number 4?
Okay. I think it's funny that we just talked about how they took a movie and basically didn't change much of it. And I said, yeah, but I got that movie higher. But this one I actually have as my number 4, and it is Turkish Super.
I have it higher.
Yeah. Turkish, yeah, because this was literally everything you just said about Turkish Death Wish, apply it to Turkish Superman. It is literally just Superman. Like, it is,
now, is it though?
It is literally just that movie.
Because like the 78 Superman isn't about a laser that turns any metal into gold. The Turkish Superman, or the original 78 Superman, isn't about just like Clark Kent sitting at a desk answering phones constantly. There are so many scenes where they're just answering phone calls, hanging up the phone, calling somebody else, hanging that phone up, calling the other person back. Also, there's how many scenes of them just ascending staircases? We have to watch every single character in the same scene
just
walk up the same staircase. So imagine I set a camera at the top of your staircase, and then we watch Phoenix go up the stairs, and then we watch Jason go up the stairs, and all in real time, no cuts, no edits. Then a bit of a pause. And you're like, okay, what's going to happen next? And then Heather, who sponsored this episode, comes walking up the stairs. Then 2 more minutes goes by, and some other person who you've never seen before goes walking up the stairs. Like, who's that? You never see him again. You'll never see them again, but we needed to see them go up the stairs. I've never seen them before. They're not in another scene of the movie, but we needed to see a complete stranger walk up the stairs. There were so many times I was watching this going, what the fuck is this movie? What are we doing? Because here's the thing. If this was a 30-minute Superman short, perfect. It's silly enough. It's goofy enough. It's like, okay, honestly, his Superman suit isn't really that bad.
No,
it's not a bad suit. Yeah. It's like, okay, this is Turkey Trey. This movie is as long, if not longer, than Richard Donner's Superman.
Yes, it is long.
I couldn't believe it. And so much of it, nothing happens.
Yeah.
Somebody gets thrown into a trunk. Superman flies. It's a doll. It's an action figure on a string in front of a projector.
In front of a projector.
A projector of people on a boating vocation. There's just people on a speedboat waving. And the people on a speedboat are supposed to be beneath flying Superman. They're 3 times the size of Superman. Aspect ratio, size, all off.
Nothing bad.
Then he lands. He walks like Frankenstein's monster. He lumbers. He is at certain points, you know I'm telling the truth.
Yes.
Superman puts his arms out stiff like Frankenstein. And then just like barely walks. He just sort of moves towards the bad guys. He doesn't even like bend his arms to throw a punch.
No.
His arms are stiff in front of him. And then he literally just like turns at the waist and then clocks people in the head with the side of his fist.
Oh, so
and they don't go flying or anything; they just sort of fall over.
And this is funny because you're literally saying everything I would say, and this is worse. This is literally worse for me. Like I sound like the guy defending this movie. Like no, like this is awful. Like everything you're saying, I'm like yes, of course. This is why I have it for.
So. The movie is actually called, I think, it's either called Superman Returns or Supermen Returns.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is where things go weird. Typhoon, who is our Clark Kent.
Yes.
Definitely has the jaw to be Superman. This guy was only picked because he was tall and has an amazing jawline. That's it. He wears the glasses of the old lady from the Old Navy commercials about 30 years ago, Carrie Donovan. You remember that old lady that was in all the Old Navy commercials? Like, oh, zip up fleece. Wow.
Oh, wow.
And she had these big round glasses, black glasses, and she always wore pearls, you know?
Yeah.
Those are Clark Kent's glasses in this movie. He eventually gets the Kryptonite stone. No, the Krypton stone.
Yes.
He throws the Krypton stone. In a flash of smoke, Jor-El appears. He's like, how are you here? He's like, I am your real father. You were adopted. You are not on that planet. I am not here. I am a ghost from the past. You are a Superman. I am Superman. We are all Supermen on our planet, but you are the last of the Supermen. And you will have the genius of Solomon, the might of Hercules. At this point, I'm going, wait a minute.
Yeah.
The patience of Atlas, the health of Zeus. I'm going, I know this from somewhere. The courage of Achilles. It starts to dawn on me. Yeah. And the speed of Mercury. I'm like, that's fucking Shazam. They gave Superman Shazam's backstory. Yeah. A wizard in a cave is Jor-El, who comes from the kryptonite. I'm like, okay, now hang on a second. Y'all are adapting Superman But you clearly just wanted to make a Shazam movie.
Very, very cool.
And how the fuck do you know who Shazam is in 1979? I didn't know who Shazam was until 5 years ago.
Well, no, like Shazam appeared in comics like shortly around the time of Superman.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
but you can't. Shazam wasn't popular in America, even though he's as old, if not older, than Superman. Yeah. But apparently, they were reading Shazam in Turkey and going, "This is the OG." I don't know who the fuck Superman is. They don't know who he is. They didn't give a shit about Superman.
Yeah, they bungled this. Like on top of like just not getting the story right. Like it's just it's so clunky of a film, right?
Oh, it's so clunky.
It's so clunky of a film. Like we had films like this in the U.S. Like way back at the start of filmmaking, where like
100%.
Where like, you know, the acting was awkward and stunted and the dialogue didn't make sense from line to line, and it was just very
scenes
weird.
Are just cut. They're not. There's no editing isn't smooth. It's just literally you feel the chop in the frame.
Right, like it would just chop middle of a sentence, middle of a scene, just all kinds of crazy stuff.
Commercial alert! Commercial alert!
No TV, no TV.
What? No.
Hello, I'm Pee-wee Herman.
Talking Pee-wee is really cuckoo.
He's naughty.
I know you are, but what am I?
Soon you'll be that way too. Whatever you may do, it's so much fun when he's with you.
Banana sandwich?
Arr!
You'll go wacko, you'll go crazy with Talking Pee-wee.
Talking Pee-wee from Matchbox for you and your kid. Cherry sold separately.
What's that? Major luck.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, like we had those films. This is that film. Like this is that.
Yes.
Like, you know, 1920s film that we had, and they just now decided to use. Yep. And I hate those films. Like if I'm being honest, I hate those films. They are so hard to watch. Like I'm sure they were great back in their day, but they're about 50 years past their expiration date. I can't stand those films. Like, and that's what this was. And so, like, you take pretty much the basic structure that we know of Superman stories. Like, we know he's an alien from Krypton. He was adopted by, you know, an American family, or in this case, a Turkish family. And, you know, he finds out he's Superman, and then he goes off and becomes, you know,
Shazam. He goes off and becomes Shazam. That's what happens. That's when it goes pear-shaped. Because you're right. From the beginning, it's like, oh, okay, this is Superman. Like, he's got a sick father who's dying, who reveals to him, you're really not of this earth. Right. You're like, okay, this is a Turkish version of Superman. And then he becomes Shazam.
Right.
Yeah.
Except he still falls for Lois Lane and has to rescue her. And then he eventually reveals his identity to her. And I think there's the change in the phone booth or something like that. You know, he has to wear the glasses because the glasses are his disguise. So they have the certain plot points of Superman in this movie. It's just that the movie itself is put together very haphazardly. And you're right, the villain's evil plan is to build a ray that turns things to gold.
Right. An alchemy laser.
Right. Yeah. And I'm like, and you're stopping him? Like, why? Like he's going to ruin his own life. Let him live.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, like, the only person in the world who understands the chemistry of the Krypton stone, which the villain needs, but is also the only thing that can defeat Shazam, is Turkish Lois Lane's father.
Mm-hmm.
And we go from Turkish Lois Lane's father is kidnapped, Superman has to save her father, to then, once the father is saved, then Lois Lane gets herself immediately kidnapped. And then he rescues Lois Lane, then she gets kidnapped again. And she gets kidnapped by the same car twice.
Yes.
She ends up in the trunk of the same Cadillac convertible twice in the span of 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane. Where I lost it, and I laughed my ass off, and that's where it bumped the movie up,
Right.
was the train sequence. Because they got real creative with the editing.
Yes.
And they were trying to build tension. So you had train A, you had a red train and a blue train. And now, here's the thing. Until the very end, we don't know that these trains are in the same tracks because it's just B-roll footage. I don't think they shot.
Mm-hmm.
So I was not aware that these two trains were going to crash into each other. I was like, why are we seeing a red train and a blue train? I honestly, at times, at the very beginning, I thought they just couldn't keep their footage straight. And it was just, they were both supposed to be the same train. But they didn't have, you know what I mean? They didn't have enough footage for either, so they were just hoping nobody noticed. And then it starts to cut to, then it cuts to Superman, blue train, red train, Superman, Superman, red train, blue train, red train, Superman. And the cutting ends up going so fast between a split second of Superman, split second of the train, Superman, train. And it goes on so long that any tension they created by accident is relieved. And then he just hard cut to 2 stop trains and him standing there. Right. And that's it. That's the end of the scene. Right. And I laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. And that alone was worth every lumbering, clumsy, discombobulated, protracted fight scene. They have fight scenes where guys are literally just throwing themselves on the ground.
Oh, man. Like, they're...
And Superman just sort of wings his fist out like this.
Yeah.
Just kind of turns.
You know what
I don't know.
You know what it reminded me of? Oh, God. I can't even. Oh, God. I don't know if it was a commercial. Yeah, it was a commercial. Like, remember way back when, how they used to sell action figures, right? And they would just show the action figure going like, like, that's exactly what this movie reminded me of.
You could pull it back and it would like snap back at the waist and then boom, and, you know, incredible punching action. Yeah. Right. Boom. Yeah. And then you send the bad guy character through a wall of little, you know, speaking of action figures, the little areas in the commercials they always played in that they never sold were always more interesting in the action figures.
RoboCop and the Ultra Police, the only cops with rapid repeat cap firing.
He's unstoppable.
Battling the worst criminals, Headhunter and Nitro. The Ultra Police, protected by Robo Armor, bring RoboCop even more firepower.
They always had like little buildings made of like little cubes, clear cubes. You'd punch the bad guy and he'd knock over a bunch of cubes.
Yeah.
And then you realize that, like, I just really wanted, they should have come with the whole, like...
The cube set.
The cube set, yeah. The fake wall that they never sold, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you're selling all these vehicles and play sets, but you're not selling the shit that sold me the action figures in the first place. But yeah, you're 100% right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's
exactly what it's like. It's like somebody turns this giant guy at the waist, and then, doom, incredible punching action. Turkish Superman.
Oh,
now available at KB Toys.
Literally. Literally. This is Action League now. Like, as a
yes. Wow. That's a deep cut.
Oh, yeah, it's a very deep cut.
you and I are just going deep cut, deep cut, deep cut. The movies are all deep cuts. Right. Our references are all deep cuts. Our jokes are all deep cuts.
You gotta be really in depth to get this episode, guys.
You gotta be an elderly millennial movie podcaster from Northeast Ohio to get any of this episode. Somebody is listening to this and going, "What the fuck is a Strongsville? What are they talking about? We should have just been talking in tongues this whole episode." And be like, well, I hope you have the interpretation because we knew what we were saying.
Exactly. Oh,
man. Okay, so that is your number 4?
Yes.
Turkish Superman?
Yes.
My number 4 is Rampage, a.k.a. Turkish Rambo.
Oh, this is too funny. I have it higher.
It's okay. Here's what. Let me start here. not the opening. There is a scene in this movie where Turkish Rambo is jumping cliffs and the woman is going to fall and he's holding her. And as he's holding her hand, he gets flashbacks to a backstory we knew nothing about of his trauma, which is, one of his other soldiers, his buddy, hanging from a similar cliff and he couldn't hang on. The guy falls, he dies. That exact scene is repurposed for an actual Sylvester Stallone film, the early 90s Cliffhanger.
Yes.
It is almost beat for beat the same. And I'm going, is this a joke? Did somebody pull the greatest prank on Sylvester Stallone ever by stealing a scene from a movie that ripped his movie off and putting it into his movie?
That is funny. I hope so. Like,
and have we discovered, are we the first people to realize that Cliffhanger rips off Turkish Rambo?
Oh man, I hope so, because that is hilarious. But like, that scene is so funny to me because we never come back to that, by the way. like
No,
we don't revisit.
no.
It's just literally that scene where he saves this girl because he's dealing with this trauma of this lost friend that he has. He doesn't talk about it before then, and we don't come back to it afterwards. It's literally just that scene, and it's like, okay, I guess we have that. Like, it's like, I don't know what it holds for this character, but I have a theory though. I think you can correct me. I don't know if this is true or not, but I think they fully thought, much like Rambo, they were going to have a whole series of films with this character.
Well, there's two of them. There's another one.
See?
Yeah.
And I figured they were like, we don't have to explain that because we're going to explain it in the next one. And then we'll get to go back in time for the next. Like, very much feels like they were planning a franchise with this character.
Very much how we now in the States make movies. We're like, well, we're not going to flesh this character out because we got 10 more movies to do.
Right.
This movie is low for me.
You don't say.
But it had probably my favorite scene
of
all of these movies. Okay. My favorite scene is that same woman who he rescues, but holds her hand for about 10 minutes while as she hangs from a cliff while he has a very protracted. It takes a good 2 minutes of staring.
Yeah.
Him staring and us staring at him before he even has the PTSD flashback. That just him staring off went on so long, I thought we weren't going to get a flashback. And just when I thought it was going to end, then we go into the flashback. That same woman dies not much later in the film. And I think she is the only character in the history of movies in any culture who comforts the man who was inadvertently responsible for getting her killed.
Yes.
She is dying, and she is comforting Turkish Rambo, who failed to protect her. And going, it's okay. She says to him, it's okay that you failed to protect me because I've had a dark and miserable life, and my life was always destined to end with me being brutally murdered. That's not a paraphrase. That's not my interpretation. That is more or less what she says to him, correct?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what she says. She's like, I've had a horrible life. I was always going to die. So
horrible.
Yeah.
I was always going to die horrible.
Yeah, she actually does say I was always going to have a horrible death. So it's like, it's perfectly fine. I'm like,
yeah, so don't mourn me. Don't be sad. I'm completely fine.
I'm totally okay with this.
I'm totally okay with this. I couldn't breathe. I was like, it awoke me from a slumber because the rest of the movie is kind of boring. It's basically like it's Turkish Rambo.
Right.
It's the plot's a little bit different. It's more like a First Blood Part 2 or 3.
Right.
Because it's like him fighting terrorists in the hills of Turkey or whatever. None of the I fought for my country. What did my country ever do for me? None of the pathos.
Right.
none of the background. The only sense that we get that he's traumatized is that random flashback that is never addressed before or after.
Right.
2/3 of the way through the movie.
I want to talk like there's.
Go ahead.
I want to talk about one of the greatest scenes in this movie, though. That like literally, like you laughed at that moment. I freaking screamed at this. Like, so in the beginning, I guess these guys are criminals, and they try to commit a crime. They end up getting caught. There's one, big chubby guy and one super skinny guy. And they throw them both in a cell, right? And it's looking like, all right, they're about to spend, a night in jail, waiting trial or whatever.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, from behind the wall comes this silky, like dripped in sweat, t-shirt ripped, muscly man. And he stands in the doorway like a freaking playboy, like a playgirl model, just like, light all on him and everything. And all I'm thinking is, oh, somebody's gonna be the girl tonight. Like, what I'm saying? Somebody's dropping the soap tonight.
Yeah. Turkish bathhouses and Turkish prisons have a certain reputation.
Yeah, I'm like, so, it's looking like somebody bending over, and it's gonna be you, chubby.
Somebody's gonna get turned out.
And I'm like, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, so I guess this is what this movie is. And then we find out, like, oh no, he's a criminal too, and he betrayed the government or whatever. And I'm sitting up there the entire time. I'm going, no, I want the Turkish porn. Like, I want the bathhouse. I'm like, I don't care what else happens here. I want him bending somebody over, because that was too perfect. You understand? Like, that y'all set that up so goddamn well. I'm like, I won't settle for anything else. Like, so. Like, the fact that I didn't get that, I'm very disappointed in this movie, but it was okay. Like, just that should have been. That is
hilarious.
That was the scene where I was like, oh man, we're going places.
I just choked off. Yeah. Well, because that's I mean, honestly, like, I don't know if you watch these in some kind of order, but by the time I got to Turkish Rambo, which came out in '86, I was just sort of, I almost felt like I'd been bludgeoned. So like anything was possible at that point. So if it had broken out into a full blown, and especially with Turkish Star Wars having nothing to do with Star Wars, if Turkish Rambo just ended up being a Turkish porno, I wouldn't have known. Like, I wouldn't even have fazed me at that point. Like, all right, this is what we're doing.
I guess this is it. Like,
yeah. Weird move, Heather, but I'm here for it. Whatever. Pin me, pay me. You pay the money, I'll watch the movies.
Oh man,
it's your money. Your money. If you want me to review Turkish porn, I will, I guess.
Oh, it would have been so much better. like, let's be honest. Even First Blood would have been better if it turned out that way. Like,
that's actually true. Yes.
Oh man.
All right. So that is Turkish Rambo is my number 4. What is your number 3?
All right. So number 3, we're gonna finally get back to one that was on your list, and I'm going with oh god, I can't even pronounce it. What is it? Executioner. Yeah.
So Turkish Death Wish.
Turkish Death Wish, yes, is my number 3. Like I said, I felt like the lead actor just has such a great look that works so perfectly well with that character and that story. And like honestly, I haven't seen the Death Wishes that we've done, but I don't know if we have a character with that look, you know what I'm saying, like in any of those movies where it just like draws you in, like, oh no, this guy, you can definitely see how this guy goes down the dark path and becomes that kind of person.
Yes.
So I for that alone, and like, look at his competition, really. Like, it was probably gonna be up here just off that alone.
Yep. I hear you. So my number 3 is a movie that you just talked about, which is Turkish Superman. And the only other note that I have on it is what was amazing is even when there was nothing but dog shit on the screen, you realized how powerful that John Williams score is, that Superman theme.
Yeah.
Because we're watching absolute dog shit on our screen. And we're hearing the Superman theme that what it felt like to me was somebody got a 45 of the Superman theme. They played it and then they recorded with a microphone off of the record player.
Right.
Because it wasn't like in Turkish Star Wars, they just stole the soundtrack from Star Wars.
Yeah, it was a pure rip.
That's just a rip. This feels like somebody were like, I don't know if you did this as a kid when you used to tape off the radio.
Oh, God, yeah, sadly.
Because you'd wait for the song and you'd be like, oh, okay, it's playing. You have to
make sure it's in the right spot. Yeah. Press record. Oh,
exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, the tragedy.
It felt like somebody did that. Yeah, it felt like somebody did that with the 45 from Superman. Somebody had imported this John Williams soundtrack for Superman and played it and recorded their recording of it, and it was still moving.
Right. I mean,
it was the power of it was still conveyed. I'm just like, this guy is in his 90s now, John Williams, and he is going to go down as the single greatest film composer of all time.
Yeah,
and will never, ever, ever be topped.
I don't see how it's possible. No.
No.
Yeah.
And the older I get, the more I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because we get shittier and shittier music and movies and film scores that you don't even like. This guy, just like in the 70s, ripped off 4 of the most iconic just opening themes of all time. Yeah. It's like, what do you want? Jaws? Okay, I give you Jaws. What do you want? Yeah, Star Wars or Star Wars? What do you want? It just went on and on. With Superman, I got Superman. And you're just like, whoa.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, you must be done. Nah, I got the 80s in me. It's like, even in he was old in the 90s. He was
and
old.
He was still killing.
And he's just sort of like, what? He's like, well, you want Jurassic Park? Da-da-da-da-da. You'll cry into your 50s when you hear those notes. And you're just like, we didn't know it. We were there sitting in the movie theater. We're like, wow. And we didn't realize that they could literally just play and we'd be in tears. That is the power of John Williams. The power of John Williams transcends culture to the point that you can be watching a doll that I don't even think is a Superman doll with a red napkin taped to its back flying against B-roll footage of 3 people somewhere in Turkey on a speedboat waving, and that Superman theme hits, and you're like, oh my God, I believe a man can fly.
That's it. That's all it takes.
That's all it takes. So that's my number 3. Okay. What is your number 2?
Oh God, I can't even believe I'm saying this. My number 2 is Turkish Ramping. Oh man,
Turkish Rambo.
Turkish Rambo is my number 2.
Okay, Turkish Rambo. Why is this so high for you?
Because it was deliriously stupid. like deliriously, and it had to be because. Yeah. We're like, number one, the story of Rambo is crazy. That is crazy.
Yes.
So for another culture to adopt it, number one, why? But number 2, if you're gonna do it, you might as well just screw it. Go full caution to the wind. I love the guy who was the lead. I thought he had a fantastic look. I think the story is somewhat cohesive, which I gotta give some props to that because I do prefer cohesive storytelling. I mean, call me a snob, but I I think cohesive storytelling works.
I do. Call me a snob. I do prefer my stories are coherent.
That's all. That's what I'm saying. I think it's a low bar, but I'm like.
I'm gonna die. I'm gonna have an asthma attack laughing. Oh my god.
Oh, but yeah,
you said that you were so sincere though when you said it. That's what made it. Like, I just really like coherent stories. I like my stories to be coherent, cohesive. I was like, okay, all right. Maybe that's the difference.
Right. You know what I'm saying? I guess I'm in the minority, but
I prefer gobbledygook as you call it. You prefer coherence, cohesion. Oh my god.
I mean, and that's it. Like we have a character.
Yeah.
He's got a goal, and he does what he can to achieve that goal. We put obstacles in his way to keep him from achieving that goal. Eventually, he overcomes those obstacles and he achieves his goal. That's it. Like that's it. That is the bare bones of storytelling. Yeah. And that's all I need, right? Like I feel like even if you throw a bunch of nonsensical things in the way, a bunch of deliriously silly things, you could throw in a love interest that dies in his arms and forgives him anyway. Whatever. Right? Whatever. You could throw in a random flashback that we never go back to. Fine. Okay. But as long as we have some cohesion, and again, with all of these movies, like the level of competition is very, very low. So like if all I needed right here was just the bare bones of storytelling to get me over the hump, then that's fine. And I do think we had a great lead. He did a great job. I thought some of the fight scenes were really good, especially the one up against the bad guy's brother or whatever. I thought that one was really solid. And and the bad guy actually made me want him to die. Like I was like, oh man, I hope they kill this guy. So like, all in all, I was satisfied with it. So yeah, it's my number 2.
Did you like when Turkish Rambo finally got the bazooka?
Yeah.
Fired it, and all it did was burn the guy's face a little bit up in the top right.
Wait,
it just kind of burned his eyebrows off. It blew up right in front of him.
Oh, that whole scene had me in stitches because this dude had a bazooka. Nowhere on him does he have refills. Okay? Like nowhere on him does he have refills. It literally is one load, one shot. And somehow,
that's right.
Somehow he's running around firing off like 8 bazookas at a time. Reloading from the heavens, I guess. I have no idea. I'm like, what is this? Like, what is this? But yes.
It was a miracle bazooka.
Really?
It was a holy bazooka that Allah kept refilling.
Somehow a 6-barrel bazooka that he had. I was like, oh my god.
Do you know the difference between Turkish Rambo and American Rambo?
What's that?
Turkish Rambo never helped the Taliban.
Fair.
American Rambo did. American Rambo was on the side of Al Qaeda and the Taliban in what was it? Rambo 3?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Turkish Rambo, not a part of 9/11.
There you go.
American Rambo, 9/11 supporter. Just saying.
Yeah.
You know why this movie is so low for me amongst all the other stuff that I said?
Why?
I'm going to throw out 2 names. I'm going to ask you if you know them, and you may very well tell me no, and that's okay. You're a better man for it. Okay. Do you know who David Pryor is or Ted Pryor? They're brothers.
No.
No, you don't.
Unless they're related to Richard Pryor.
No, quite the opposite. They made a movie in a series of films, but one of the movies they made, probably the most popular movie they made, is a movie called Deadly Prey.
Mm.
It is a Rambo knockoff, exceptionally boring film. And it came in the wave of a bunch of direct-to-video movies where average people could start to get consumer pro cameras, at least to be able to shoot in 4:1 standard definition. And it is in a subgenre of movies where people figured out all you needed was either woods, the desert, and a guy who looked halfway decent with his shirt off. And most of the time, you didn't even need that. Neil Breen has a cottage industry of making movies where he takes his shirt off and nobody wants to see that shit. But he lives in Las Vegas, so he can just go off in the desert and shoot a movie.
Nice.
And he gets the girls and he kills the bad guys. And he's Jesus, who's an alien who turns into a cyborg and comes down from heaven.
Okay.
But the Pryor brothers made a bunch of movies where a guy in cut off Daisy Duke shorts, covered in baby oil with a six-pack, his brother, Ted Pryor, ran around with a mullet, killing terrorists and bad guys as a PTSD-ridden American soldier, Vietnam veteran, with big old Rambo knife. And as long as you had explosions and maybe some boobs, you had a movie. And those movies are very boring to me for the most part. And I've had to sit through a lot of them because when you have a movie podcast that specializes in covering the full spectrum of film, everybody wants you to cover the notoriously bad movies, the Miami Connections, the Samurai Cops. And I love some of those movies. I love Miami Connection.
Right.
But they always want you to cover Deadly Prey too, or movies like it. Or Zat, or all this sort of stuff. It's like it's either a guy in a bad alien costume in the woods lumbering around, or it's a guy in Daisy Dukes of baby oil with a bandana with a machine gun in it. And honestly, this is just a Turkish version of Deadly Prey.
Right.
And so because I've seen so many of those, and I'm so bored by those, and you haven't because you like movies that are coherent. This was a treat to you, and I have already so assaulted and numbed my sense of good taste, Phoenix, that I'm dead inside. And when I watched it, it just I need gobbledygook to make me feel awake.
That's a fair assessment. I completely understand.
I don't need the good stuff. I don't need the clean. I don't want you. I need it cut. I need that baby formula and that arsenic cut into what I'm snorting. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes. Sadly, yes.
Yeah. You give me the clean stuff, it doesn't even faze me. I need a hole. Doesn't do nothing. I need a hole in my brain. How much fentanyl can you put in there? That's where I'm at with movies.
Oh man.
Just to feel. I gotta shoot the stuff into places you don't even want to dream about. I can't mainline this stuff anymore.
Oh man.
This is all metaphors, but all of my movie veins have collapsed.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I hope to never get to that point. That would be tragic.
I'm the movie version, honestly, Phoenix, of you'd roll into a Wendy's that's open late night, and you stop in for a Frosty and think, I'm going to take a leak while I'm, waiting for my Frosty because it's the late night crew. So they're not, all I got to do is pull a lever, but it's going to take them 25 minutes. So you're waiting. And then all you see is feet sticking out from the stall, and you're like, oh, and you just turn around and be like, hey, we got Narcan.
Jeez.
I'm the movie equivalent of that. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I've watched Gary Oldman pretend to be a little person and drive a motorcycle in a real motion picture with Matthew McConaughey and 3 other Academy Award winners. Tiptoes, it's a real movie.
Right.
And ever since then, man, I'm an addict. I'm broken down. I'm not even watching movies anymore to feel anything. I'm just watching them so my hands don't shake.
Oh my God. That's a problem.
Phoenix, when you're begging people for money to pay you to watch Turkish exploitation movies, you have a problem.
This is true.
It's the movie podcast equivalent of being like, I'll suck your dick for a cheeseburger. That's where I'm at.
And you suckered me into it. You got me on my knees right next to you.
I pulled you down into my level. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Like, how did I get here?
Like, yeah, swallow that gobbledygook. Why don't you?
Gobbledygook. I'm gobbling the gook. These movies are spitting out. Yeah.
Oh man. Oh.
Bet you don't talk about this in the Nostalgia Cast. T.W. Lumber can't drink brisk iced tea. Me, I'm freebasing Turkish exploitation movies in a Wendy's bathroom at 2 a.m.
Oh my god. These images you are putting in my head. It's so awful. Oh my god.
We live in the same area. I'm not putting them in your head. I'm just referencing what's around us. Am I lying? Tell me when I'm telling lies. I'm just referencing what is around us every day of our lives.
Oh god. Oh man. I can't.
Shit.
I can't. Oh god. My face hurts. This is too much.
Oh shit. All right.
Oh god.
We're at what?
Well,
my number 10?
Yes,
Is that where
yes,
we're
please.
My number 2 is 3 Dev Adam, which just means like three giant men or 3 men or whatever.
Right.
AKA Turkish Spider-Man. In this. All right, let me start this question. Do you think Miles Morales will jam the face of a man into a boat propeller in Beyond the Spider-Verse? Will that ever be an Easter egg?
Oh my god.
In the next film?
Oh god.
This movie opens with Spider-Man shoving a guy's face into a boat propeller as blood goes everywhere. And I was like, I thought this was Turkish Spider-Man. And the story behind it is they didn't have Spider-Man comic books in 1973. They wouldn't get them until the end of the decade.
Mm-hmm.
They had the costume, but they didn't know who the fuck Spider-Man was. So they made up whatever story that they wanted to, so they could put him as they made him a villain, because the movie they really wanted to make was about Captain America, who, by the way, was not Captain America, because Captain America hadn't made it over there yet. He was actually a character called the Red Scarlet, but for whatever reason, they used Captain America's costume.
Wow.
But it was really for the Red Scarlet character and the, what's the luchador? Oh my God.
Oh God.
The wrestler. What's his name?
Jesus, which one? Shoot.
Oh my God.
Muerto? Is that El Muerto?
Let me see here. It is. Who, by the way, it's not him.
Mm-hmm.
Santo, the Saint, El Santo.
Oh, El Santo. Okay.
Yeah. It's not him,
right?
But it is his costume,
right? And
so they ripped off Lucha Libre star, the Saint, who was very, very popular in Turkey somehow. Mm-hmm. Lucha Libre, and him in particular, and I think it's partially because he made a bunch of movies, and the character from Coco, the bad guy, who made like the guitar player who stole the song, and who's in a bunch of movies. He's kind of based on the real El Santo, the saint. So this was like he made movies, and he was just a big matinee idol who was also a wrestler, and he was internationally known. And the Red Scarlet was really popular, but for whatever reason they ended up picking Captain America. I don't remember why, but they did. And then they were like, well, we need a villain who's an interesting character. And they heard the name Spider-Man, and they didn't really know anything about him. And so they figured, well, if he's Spider-Man, he's got to be a bad guy, because that seems like a villain name. And so this is a movie where Spider-Man is a villain, and he's trying to take down the team of Captain America and the Saint and their girlfriends who are secret agents.
Right.
And I don't know for the life of me what Spider-Man's plot. I don't. What is his agenda? Just to murder people? Is it like there's a whole plot of like espionage? And we're trying to steal this.
Yeah, he's trying to steal something. I can't remember exactly what it was, and I don't even remember what its significance was. But like, yeah, I think he was out to steal something. He's also out to like money laundering or something like that, something along those lines.
Oh yes, it was something about like this really didn't make any sense. It was something like we're using fake money to buy real pirated antiquities, and then somehow using that to launder the fake money so that we get real money, but then we steal the antiquities back or something. Yeah. It was so. I remember I just wrote down, I don't know what is what or who is who. All I can tell you is that Santo did not symmetrically load his strict press. At one point, he's doing a strict press, and one arm is like bent, and the other arm's way in the air. I'm like, this guy doesn't know. This guy's never held a barbell in his life. I was so worried for his rotator cuff. So somebody fucked up a labrum and a rotator cuff with a barbell. I was like, man, I am so worried. You have to symmetrically load your infraspinatus so that you can use your lats to properly, extend your arms and engage and have control over the bar. And he just didn't have that. And the fact that I was thinking in such technical terms let me know that I was at some level emotionally disconnected from the movie. But then the movie won me back because the best explanation for 3 Dev Adam, which is sort of like the OG Turksploitation film, came out in 1973, is it feels like the 1960s Batman television series, but without the budget and made by regional public access television.
That is perfect.
It feels like someone in Knoxville, Tennessee made their version of the 60s Batman show with whatever leftover budget from the weather department. You know what I mean? And this show only aired on UHF.
The costumes that like the crew members left in the closet after last year's Halloween party,
100%. There was so much Shaft music in Turkish Spider-Man. All of these movies, there's so much soulful funk.
Yes.
Sexy. It's not the Shaft theme, it's Shaft fucking music. It's the music Shaft fucks to that's in this movie. And it's in a fight scene. It's wall-to-wall fucking music. And it only happens when they are fighting.
Richard Roundtree would be proud.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Which makes you wonder. So in and obviously Shaft was a big hit, but they don't know who Spider-Man is, but they know who Shaft is. You don't have Captain America, but you got Shaft? I'm fine with it, but I'm just surprised.
Oh, man.
There's nothing wrong with it. Like you have blaxploitation films, but you don't have regular movies? Like what was making it over there? You know what I mean?
Oh my god. I could totally see Shaft making it over there though. Like totally. Like,
oh, it played like gangbusters. I'm surprised there's not a fucking Turkish Shaft on this list.
oh man, I hope so. Like that might
You know
be
what
the
I mean?
only one I'd want to see. Like that would be.
But like, okay, let's Rich Roundtree, one of the coolest people who ever lived. It's, you know, just all this sort of stuff. But if there's a movie that they could have made, it'd still be shitty.
Right.
But there's a movie they could have made. It's Shaft.
Yes.
Because they're not going to Mars.
Right.
They're not heading hyperspeed. They don't have to convince us a guy can fly. They don't have to have superheroes and Captain America or Spider-Man or any of this other sort of shit. It's just a movie about a guy who fucks and who solves crimes and who beats the shit out of people.
Mm-hmm.
That's a movie that is transcendent in any time, place, or culture. Which is why, to your point, it kind of makes sense that they would pick Death Wish.
Yes. Yes.
That's a filmable movie in a nascent film industry.
Right.
These people were like, "No, let's do Star Wars. Let's do a space opera. Let's do an epic space opera with no costumes, no experience building a set.
Oh man,
we don't know how to focus a camera. We're making Star Wars.
Oh man, like, well, what are we gonna do about the space fighting scene? Just take it from the Star Wars movies. Like, we'll just use
just cut it right out of the movie.
Cut it right out. We'll be fine. Oh man.
Well, what we'll do is we'll buy a projector, right, and a projector screen. We'll project Star Wars behind the guy sitting in a chair and put a helmet on him, and then make it look like he's flying through the stars in Star Wars, and he'll blow up the Death Star 5 times in the same scene. 5 times that guy blows up the Death Star.
Oh my god!
And then yet here we get to this movie, which is my number 2, and Shaft.
And Shaft.
Loads of Shaft. The deep cuts from the Shaft soundtrack. It is wild. I recognized, I was like, wait a minute. I thought I was crazy. I was like, is Shaft in 3 Dev Adam? And they were like, yeah, they used all the Shaft music. They didn't use the main theme, which is famous.
Right.
They used all the other stuff, but I recognized, I'm like, they used all the music cues from Shaft.
That's hilarious.
And like two other like blaxploitation films. And I'm going, so obviously blaxploitation films were inspiration for 3 Dev Adam. And it has nothing to do with the blaxploitation premise, plot.
I mean, like this is like what they've been doing this entire time. If we like going through these, they just take bits and pieces of different parts of other films, other movies, other cultures. You know what I'm saying? So like, this is blaxploitation along with comic books and superhero movies, and you know.
Karate,
kung fu movies and luchadors, like it's all thrown in here, and cop stories too, like detective cop stories. I get more of the Shaft into it, so it's just like it's all of that rolled into one, and they just do their best, right? They do their best with what they have, the limited budget, the limited costuming, just obviously no licensed music of their own, so they just steal from other places. Like all of that, and they just go, and this is our movie. And like with all of these movies share one core problem, right? They're too damn long. Like,
oh, this movie is so long. Like, it's so long.
This is so long. All of these movies are so long, and they're
this one I would even extend to like 45 minutes. If this movie was 45 minutes,
perfect.
I'd be like, perfect. Like the other ones need to be like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. If this was 45, I'll give this one 45 because it's so bonkers,
right?
You know?
But yeah.
It just goes on for like, I think an hour and 15 minutes. Because I think this is the shortest one. And it's still like an hour and 15 minutes long. And you're just like,
yeah, like that was the crazy part. Because I was like, I looked and I was like, oh, this is only like an hour 18. And I'm just like an hour into it. I'm like, oh my God, like, what is my God, hurry up. Like, it's so long.
It's so
I'm
long.
like, what is this? It was torture.
Yep.
I'm like, oh my God.
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, just none of it. Like, because so much of it doesn't come together. Like, it's not a cohesive story. I'm like, I'm just like,
Yeah.
fuck is happening here? Like 20 minutes into it, I'm just like, what is happening? Like, come on, get it on. And you want to talk about bad editing?
Oh.
There were some cuts in here. I was drinking something as I was watching it, right? And I'm sitting up here, I'm like, okay, you know what I'm saying? And like, this happened more than once. And I think by like the fourth or fifth time, what it was like, they would start saying something. And it'd be like, okay, this is what they're doing. And I'd be like, oh, okay, that's what's up. And then like right in the middle of them being like, and then we're going to do this, cut. I was like I was drinking, so I was like, what? Again, you gonna keep doing it.
Again.
Like 5 or 6 times. I was just like, okay, look, I don't care. Like, I don't care. You can't keep building the story like, oh, we about to go somewhere, and then just a straight cut, like, and then it goes to something totally different.
Totally different. I'm right there with
like,
you.
We forgot what we were talking about.
Experience.
Then we come back.
Yep.
No. It was awful.
I had the exact same experience to the point that I stopped the movie I was watching, found another copy of the movie. So I thought maybe there's something wrong with this one. They you know what I mean? Maybe this is like not a full version of it. This is like a bad copy.
Right.
And then I took it to the same scene, did the same thing. Found another version. I went through 3 versions. I could tell we're not the same transfer.
Right.
Because they were slightly different in different qualities or whatever. That is just the way I believe that this movie is edited, at least as we have in the States. And I had you know what? It had the exact same effect on me as it did you. It was like, okay, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I'm trying. Because I was like, okay, this is the first one I watched. This is a big deal within Turkish cinema because it's like one of their earliest hit films.
Right.
It is funny, interesting, gobbledygook. And so it's like, okay, all right. Like, it's bonkers. It's not what I thought it was going to be. Spider-Man's a bloodthirsty killer.
Right.
Cool. And then it would it build up the plot. And then you're exactly right. It would just cut it. And then we just start a different scene. And I thought it'd be a totally different plot.
Right.
And I would just be like, okay, all right. At this point, I know none of this shit matters. So, and then I was disengaged from it, and then it just that's when it felt like, oh God, it's just making going. Because nothing mattered. It was like there's no coherence. So that's why it's not my number 1. That's why it only ends up being my number 2.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just go ahead and break the mold here. This is my number 1.
Yes, right, yes, by process of elimination.
So this is my number 1. With all of those problems. And the only reason that this is number 1 is because this was the first one I watched, and I was furious. Like, I was legit furious. I was like, I don't know why he chose me for this. I don't get it. I'm like, we could have been watching, like, we did Kubrick last time, dude. We could have did Wes Anderson. We could have did, romantic comedies, anything. But no, he chose this.
Anything.
I'm like, so I was furious. And I'm like, okay, but I'm going to watch the rest of them. And as I watched the rest, I was like, these are all varying degrees of unbelievably awful. But, but the one thing that I kept coming back to with this one is I have never laughed so incredibly hard at something so ridiculous in my life as much as I laughed at this movie. And then, but this movie was so equally funny, but also so equally frustrating that I would literally go from hearty, balls to the wall, cheeks hurting, full throated laughter to like dead face, like to like dead straight. Like I can't believe I'm sitting through this. Like it was the first time I've ever done that. Like there's a scene, like it's the ending. The ending is what did it for me. It's like this guy's fighting Spider-Man, and they have these really long, drag out fights. Oh my god! And he finally gets the upper hand, knocks Spider-Man out, only to find there's another one hiding right there. And like the first two times it happened, I was in tears. I was just like, I gotta keep fighting. But like the fourth time, I was like, seriously, another one? Like, really? How long are we going to do this? And they did it like 9 times. like no exaggeration. They did it like 9 times. I'm like, what is this? I'm like, why? Why, Jason? Why? I hate you. I hate you so much.
I agree. It's funny, and then at a certain point, you feel like you're a prisoner of the movie.
Yeah.
That the movie is holding you hostage because it refuses to end. to quote a recent guest, the movie refuses to end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why it's my number 2, and by process of elimination for me, my number 1 is Turkish Star Wars.
Why?
Here's why. It's way too long. It's way too long. I feel like you could cut an hour off of it.
Yeah.
An hour and some change, probably. But it is so. It is. It's a puzzle box.
Mm.
When you say brain molecules, do you really mean brain molecules? Or is there a word in Turkish that has a subtlety of meaning that cannot be translated into English? And the closest equivalent is brain molecules.
Mm.
I don't know. That's a question that can never. If there is anybody in my listening audience who understands understands this movie in its original cultural context, or any of these movies, and you can educate us, please do. But in the meantime, I was left in such a liminal state where I felt like I was neither conscious nor awake. I was neither in hell or in heaven. I was in a movie purgatory where I didn't know if what was being presented to me was absurd or serious. I didn't know if this was an earnest attempt at trying to communicate something about the Islamic faith, or if this was about guys jumping on trampolines with boulders tied around their ankles to the Indiana Jones music. I don't know. I almost don't want to know.
Oh, man.
I will never have the experience that I had watching Turkish Star Wars again. It's not an experience I wanted, and it's not an experience I will ever replicate. It's an experience that if I feel it coming upon me again, I will stop the experience. If I'm ever watching another movie, and I'm like, boy, this feels like Turkish Star Wars, I'm turning the film off immediately.
Right.
But for a one-time experience from a moviegoer who's watched too many damn movies, Turkish Star Wars was just that rock that I needed. It was just as they landed blows on those boulders and broke those rocks up. This was my rock that I landed my blows on, and I broke it up, and it went into my body. My pain was taken away for a short time. Drugs aren't good for you. You hate them,
right?
But you need them. That's my review of Turkish Star Wars.
Oh my god!
You hate it, but you need it. Here you came in. You were innocent man on your way to college, full scholarship. I was like, you want to make some money during the summer? And you're like, yeah, I guess so. I'm going to school. I need some money for my books. I'm like, I'll take care of you. And before you know it, you're in a Wendy's off a Brook Park Road out by the airport.
Oh man!
Down on your knees, going, "How did I get it?
How did I get? Why is there so much gobbledygook?
I'm covered in it." I thought this guy was my friend, but he led me astray. Yeah.
Oh man.
You know what this episode is the equivalent of me handing you a stack of Turkish movies.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at them and me going, I didn't know you like Turksploitation films. And you're like, huh? I'm like, that's Turksploitation. That's Turkish Star Wars. Pure Turkish Rambo. 3 Dev Adam. You're like, what are you talking about? All of a sudden, everything starts to get all woozy around you. And this is your training day.
Oh my God.
You are Ethan Hawke at training day. And I'm just taking you deeper and deeper in the hell.
Like
I'm gonna have to kill.
You've been planning this all day. Like I've been planning this all week.
I'm gonna have to kill this guy to get out of this. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So the fact that you were like at one point like, man, fuck this guy.
Like,
watch these
man.
movies. I have to kill this guy.
Like that was this whole episode was gonna be just me coming on here going, Jason, why? Like, why would you do this?
Only one of us is making it out of this episode.
Oh man.
But you didn't hate me, you didn't kill me. You were a good sport. We got our wires crossed about 10 different times. All of technology was working against us. Tom Cruise was working against us. It's very hard to be from Northeast Ohio. You have to be a hardy person.
Yeah.
And to be from here. It's a beautiful place. It's a great place. There's many great things about it. But you have to live under the derision of the rest of the United States. I've been all over the United States. I'm going to tell you, there's way worse places than Northeast Ohio.
This is true.
Way worse places than Cleveland. Where can we find you? Well, I guess I got to do that recap. I got to do a recap?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we can do it. Yeah, sure. I guess. If anybody's ever interested in sitting through these movies, which neither one of us recommend at all. But
no, don't recommend any of them. So fuck the recap. Where can we find you on social media? We wax poetic about Cleveland. Everybody's turned out anyways.
Oh, so you got...
The only people that are listening now are all the racist Italians in Parma. Those are the people listening now.
Oh, that's funny because my ex lives in Parma. But anyway.
Was she Italian?
Yes, she was.
Italian?
Yeah,
there you go. Was she racist?
No,
probably.
She was good. She was. I found the one who was not. So there we go.
You found the one.
The one, yeah. So you guys can find me on Twitter at Jesus, what's my at? IMHO Reviews 1, that's the number 1. And where else? Oh yeah, follow my show. I also do a podcast called the Film Code Podcast. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and now on Threads at Film Code Pod. So check us out and listen to our show wherever you get your podcasts, because we're pretty dope too, which is why Jason has me on. So
correct.
So yeah, and that's where you guys can find me.
Yep. You can find us at Binge Movies on Twitter, Binge Movies on Letterboxd, at Binge Movies Lives on Instagram. Haven't made it to Threads by the time I'm recording this, but God knows I might be over there too. Special shout out to Paul from the Countdown, who I am not, but who let me borrow his thing so I could steal his deal for this episode. He's Australian, we're American. This is an American version of Australian podcast by two people obsessed with Northeast Ohio. Thank you to Heather, the elite patron, top tier patron, who supported this episode many moons ago with a generous financial gift. This is the last of the sponsored episodes. Never say never. I'm not saying I'll never do sponsored episodes again, but this was the one to finish out this season, this period of my life of sponsored episodes. And I will resume it after a stay at a local mental health facility. Okay. Until next time, binge on.